start with this on or not? Oh, it's not on.
Hi. There we go. Hi, I'm Michael. This is Megan. Thank you guys so much for coming to the event here, A Child's First Book of Trump, which I really feel like is going to change the world, you guys. I really feel like this is the book America's been waiting for. What should I do? Should I read it? You guys want to hear it? Yeah. Have you bought it?
No.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna read it, and then you're gonna be like, well, I don't need to buy the stupid thing now. Jerks. Child's First Book of Trump by Michael Ian Black, illustrated by the tremendous Marc Rosenthal, who is also here this evening. Let's read a few pages, and then you know, I won't spoil the ending. Here's the ending. He loses. Dear reader, I know that you might be confused after spotting this creature that's been in the news. What is this strange beast you keep hearing about? Together, I think we can figure it out. The beastie is called an American Trump. Its skin is bright orange. Its figure is plump. Its fur so complex you might get enveloped. Its hands are sadly underdeveloped. Now where does it live? On flat-screen TVs. It rushes toward every camera it sees. It thrives in the most contentious conditions and excretes the most appalling emissions. Its diet is cash. Its friends all go-getters. Its poop spells out Trump in 10-foot-high letters. Trump this and Trump that, and Trump buildings and steaks, Trump airplanes and clothing, and several Trump mates. Trump crap everywhere in a Trumpy Trump land, but don't call it crap. The Trump calls it a brand. This shit is clever, you guys. Yes, it can speak. Are you impressed? You should be, because a Trump's really the best. It says so if asked, and even if not. I'm the best, it declares, in terms overwrought. I have all the best words and all the best things. My water is bottled from all the best springs. My wine is the best, and so is my brain. You want to know why? Too bad, I'll explain. And here's where a Trump will go on at some length on the size of its manhood and physical strength. And it goes on and on from there. It's tremendous, tremendous work, you guys. Really tremendous. Yeah, I'll turn it off. So thank you guys for coming. This is Meghan McCain. Meghan and I wrote a book together before the 2012 election entitled America, You Sexy Bitch, a love letter to freedom, in which we traveled the country together in a rented RV and talked to Americans about America. And I came away optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, the book that we wrote 4 or 5 years ago was, Michael is a socialist liberal, I'm a conservative Republican, and it was making the attempt that we could find middle ground in our politics and in America. And at the time when our book came out, liberal. You're a socialist liberal, but when we came out of it, I was very hopeful and positive, and I'm glad that you can once again commodify off of politics in America, because this book is on the bestseller list, so give it up for his children's book doing so well.
3 weeks. 3 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
But the question I had, and again, I think a lot of people have, is we were wrong. Like,
you and I?
Yeah, we were wrong, and we lost. Correct?
Well, I think it remains to be seen. But yeah, we're pretty close to losing. Because you probably have this question in your heads right now, which is, what does Meghan McCain think of Donald Trump as a conservative Republican? And I feel like I can put words in your mouth. You hate him.
Yeah, I do.
And that is one of the things we share.
I want to know from you, because I'm supposed to be interviewing him, we're not supposed to be just talking, but other than the obvious, the book it's obviously satirical and it's for children, but there's truth in satire. And how are people responding to it? Because I know it's supposed to be funny, but it's also, you know, the things you're saying about him rushing towards cameras are true.
Yeah.
what inspired it other than the obvious?
What inspired it was two things. And first of all, I'm thrilled to see a couple children here, which I did not expect. So hello. Hello to you. I'm going to watch my language. Hello to you, sir, in the back. I'm going to say you're a child at heart because you waved when I said children. Two things inspired this book. The first was an article that I saw in the New York Times, and I feel like I saw a similar article somewhere else online, asking what I thought was a rhetorical question: how do you talk to your children about Donald Trump? Because it seemed to be an actual concern that parents were having. How old are you? 9. And what do you know about Donald Trump? His hair looks ugly. I think you know pretty much everything you need to know about Donald Trump. And how old are you? 10. And what do you know about Donald Trump? He's not good.
Oh my gosh.
And what do you think is not good about him? He says he's going to make America great again, and it's already great. And I will point out, this young gentleman is wearing a USA t-shirt. He is a plant, you guys. He is a plant. And I paid $200 to be here. So there was these articles about what do you tell your kids about Donald Trump, and I didn't even read them. I sort of thought, oh, haha, that's silly. And then I was at Barnes & Noble in the children's book section, because that is where they keep the bathrooms. And as I was emerging from the bathrooms at the Barnes & Noble, and also because I'm a children's book author, and sometimes I like to see if they have my books in stock, and they never do. And as I was leaving, I saw a chapter book about Hillary Clinton, and it was clearly designed to be an inspirational tale of Hillary Clinton. I think it was about Hillary as a young girl and then rising and etc. Now, whatever you think about Hillary Clinton, she does have an inspirational story, and I started chuckling to myself, thinking about what it would be like to write an inspirational tale of Donald Trump, because there's nothing inspiring about him in any way, shape, or form. He was born rich, did nothing of value with his life, and now is on the verge of becoming president. So I sat down, because I had some hours to kill, I sat down at that Barnes & Noble, and then subsequently at a nearby Starbucks, to write a book about the inspirational tale of Donald Trump. And I sent it to, when I was done, I sent it to my editor, who was here this evening, and I said, what do you think? And he said, I love everything about this except everything that you wrote. And what he meant was, he liked the idea, but thought that what I had written was shrill, to use a word that is often bandied about. And he was right. And so I set about rewriting it, and what that is the rewritten version of A Child's First Book of Trump. It is now more of a field guide for children to Trump. What you would do if you were to spot a wild Trump in the woods and you were to come upon one. How would you identify the Trump? How would you approach the Trump? What you should say to the Trump, and how you should deal with it. So that is the long answer to your short question.
Well, I think that's pretty good. The Salon called you the premier Trump troller on Twitter, which you were doing today, right before we came here.
That's right.
I mean, so many people in entertainment are hesitant to get political at all. Why do you feel the need to be on with your 2 million Twitter followers railing against him almost all day long for a very long time?
If you're implying I'm unemployed, that is absolutely true. Here is the serious answer, and I'm going to sound sanctimonious because I probably am, but I mean it. I'm trying to think of a way to not sound sanctimonious and coming up short. So I'll just be sanctimonious. The serious answer is, because I'm Jewish, when a campaign starts with otherizing people and is predicated on otherizing people, and I'm thinking specifically of Latinos, Muslims, Those are the two groups specifically, but you could certainly make a case for others. I feel it is my responsibility as a Jew and as an American to do everything in my power to speak out against what I see as scapegoating, otherizing, demonizing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I almost feel like it's a civic obligation, and nobody is more annoyed at me on Twitter than me, because it's true. I spend hours doing this. I spend hours arguing with people and making jokes and trying to debunk, as it were. It feels, I mean, it feels like a mission, which I hate. I hate that I feel that way. I hate that I feel obligated to do this, but I do, and so I do it.
Right now, Trump is winning in all national polls by a lot. Significant enough amount. 6 to 7 points is significant. It's significant given the kind of campaign he's running, given what he said today about Russia and espionage. I wonder, and I have this question.
Do you guys know this story? You're paying attention, right? Yeah. He basically said, yeah, Russia, come hack our emails. It's cool. Like, I'm down with that. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what he said.
It's highly illegal. The question I have for you is, sometimes I'm still a Republican, and I consider myself at this point much more of a conservative than a Republican, but
although it is fair to say that you did tweet, my party is dead.
My party is dead, but conservatism isn't. It's now the Trump party, which I'm comfortable saying, but the point is he's winning, he's tapping into anger. I just came back from 10 days in Cleveland covering the convention, and I've never seen intensity and commitment from supporters in a way that they publicly would be aggressive towards non-Trump people. I've never seen it before, and this is by far not my first campaign. So he's tapping into anger that maybe we don't recognize here in New York City. Where do you think that anger stems from? And is there any way at this point, because Michael and I's relationship is based off of trying to do something different and interesting that was bringing two sides of a political conversation together. And I'm at the point now, and again, I do this every day, all day on the radio and on television, so I'm not in the best...
Beautifully. She does it beautifully, I might add.
I'm not in the best emotional state when it comes to this convention, this whole election right now. But is there any way of coming back? Because I don't know what American is happy with how polarized we are right now.
The answer to your first question is, I have no great insight into why people are as angry as they are, other than I spend a lot of my time, and have for the last 15 years, when in the car listening to conservative talk radio. I do it for reasons that are unknown to me. But the narrative in conservative talk radio and in conservative media in general, and I will include your network, the great Fox News network, in this, is that America is in precipitous decline. Everything is terrible. Institutions are terrible. Government is terrible. People are terrible. Get your guns, arm yourselves, create a seed library for yourself so that you can grow your own food. When the apocalypse comes, you should have gold on hand at all times, because gold will be the only thing that we can trade for goods and services when the inevitable downfall of civilization happens, which will be probably sometime in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So that has been the narrative for 15 years that I've been listening, and probably longer. And people, I think, believe it, because scary stories are compelling. And the evidence in certain quarters, you could probably make a case that in certain quarters that has come to pass for some people. And for many other quarters it hasn't. So it's easy to be insulated here in New York City, where the economy's pretty good and most people have jobs and there's money and there's great restaurants, and it's harder to be insulated when you're working 2 or 3 part-time jobs and you're barely scraping by. And I can see how demagoguery could be very appealing. If somebody says, I'm gonna bring back the jobs, and I were in that situation, I think I'd be like, great, I need a better job. Is there coming back from this? Yeah. I mean, I think we're resilient, and I think I remain a Pollyanna about America. I remain endlessly optimistic about this nation, and I think in the long run we'll probably be fine. And I'm now emphasizing probably more than I might have a couple of weeks ago.
Have you had any negative response from conservatives or Trump supporters? And Donald Trump is infamously obsessed with his own publicity, so at some point he'll figure out that this book is out. Do you want him to read it? Do you want him to sign it?
I certainly don't care if he reads it. I certainly don't need him to sign it. But my great dream is for him to sue me. Because that would be so good for book sales. It would be so good for book sales. What was the first question?
Have you had any Trump supporters get angry over this
Well,
book?
what I get a lot of, and I swear to you, I've never dealt with this in my entire life. I am 23 years old, and I've never dealt with this before.
You're 43.
Shush. I'm 44, about to turn 45. As soon as I started tweeting about Trump, early in his campaign, and I started doing it with some frequency and more as he rose in the polls, I started getting a barrage of anti-Semitic tweets from we'll call them, because that's what they call themselves, the alt-right movement, which is a small but growing movement in conservative, they call themselves conservative circles, whose the banner that they fly is they're against political correctness. The actual banner that they march under is white nationalism. And I received many images of myself, my face inside an oven in Auschwitz with a cartoon of Donald Trump about to pull the lever. Many images, just historical photos of Holocaust victims. And then just your run-of-the-mill slurs. Hundreds and hundreds of these. Now, I'm not alone. As far as I can tell, every prominent Jewish person who's been speaking out against Trump has received these. And it's honestly the first time in my life that I have ever experienced anti-Semitism. I was going to say in any way, in any real way, but really in any way. That was surprising to me and shocking on some level, and upsetting. Not upsetting for me personally, upsetting that apparently this level of hatred still exists and that it's just kind of burbling right under the surface, waiting for a reason to come out.
Why do you think it's doing so well?
The book? Or Trump?
The book.
Oh.
Because not all our books do well.
No.
I'd say that to myself as well. But it is. I see it. A lot of people have tweeted it to me. I've seen it places. People, two friends of mine are pregnant, and they insisted that I bring them back with them for their unborn children to have when they get older.
Nice.
Yes, Miranda. But it's doing very well on the bestseller list. And do you think people are just buying it to explain Donald Trump to their children?
Well, that's been the surprising thing to me. I never thought anybody would read it to their kids. That was never the intention. I mean, I know it's called The Child's First Book of Trump, but it was really meant as a parody. And I thought it will be something that adults give to other adults as kind of a funny gift when they see it in the checkout line at a bookstore. But what I'm finding is that parents really are reading it to children. I think for one, the reason that I said, because I think parents actually are looking for a way to explain Donald Trump to their children, and two, because it actually works as a children's book. It has a children's book message in it, which is you don't necessarily need to pay attention to the loudest voice in the room. There are other options about how you deal with that kind of personality.
The illustrations are really cool. I got to see a dummy before it came out. Is it intentionally supposed to look like the Lorax?
Yes. My only instruction to my editor, who I guess passed it on to the great Marc Rosenthal, was that I saw the Trump as a Lorax type figure, and then he took that idea and really ran with it. Because it was because it was written satirically, for one thing I wrote it in verse, which is something I've never done before, and two, I wrote it specifically in a Seussian manner, because I sort of felt like as a parody book, there are certain expectations that readers have of children's books, however outdated, and one of those is that they rhyme, and the most familiar rhyming children's book author is Dr. Seuss, so it's written in that style. And Mark did an amazing job. And the most remarkable thing about it is I joke about writing children's books that if it takes me longer than 90 minutes to write a children's book, I know I've done something wrong. But the illustrations are what take a tremendous amount of time with children's books, and they can take months and months. And because I wrote this in like March or something, and we wanted to have it out for the convention, Mark had to turn around the illustrations almost immediately. Like within a week, he had illustrated the whole thing and gone through a round of notes and changed some of the illustrations. And he just did a fantastic job. He's here in the back. Mark, do you want to wave hello? What?
Do you want to take questions?
Sure, we can take some questions if
interesting
anybody
as I
has
think
any.
my questions are, but I'm
Hi.
sure
Hi. Given the recent events in Turkey and the events in Turkey over the last couple of years.
Let me stop you right there. You're about to ask me about Turkey, and I am certainly qualified to speak about this. Continue.
Does it give you any pause at all that there's such a tremendous record of your stance? Given the
Do you mean am I afraid physically?
Well, I mean, given the fact that a democratically elected president of a country that's in...
Are you talking about the coup in Turkey?
Yeah, the president in Turkey was going after journalists and anybody that badmouthed him, essentially.
Am I afraid that Trump might do this?
Yeah.
As an authoritarian?
Can I take this really
Yeah,
quick?
please do.
My friend Jamie Kirchick, who writes for many different publications, he actually has a whole article about how martial law, like it happened in Turkey, could 100% happen under a Trump presidency. It's a fantastic article. It came out 5 days ago. That's just my take.
I'm going to say I don't think it could happen here. That is the most naive answer I could give, and also the one that I think is the truest. I think our First Amendment is so beloved and strongly protected that it would be almost impossible for any president to abrogate. Is that the word? Abrogate? Writers? Is that the word? Abrogate our rights? Is that the word, Justin? To abrogate our rights. That doesn't mean that he could not make it very difficult for the press to do their jobs. It doesn't mean he might not. It doesn't mean I might not get audited or something. But I am just foolish enough to believe that freedom of speech would survive and thrive in a Trump presidency and be more necessary than ever.
He also built a palace that had, I mean, I think 1,000 rooms in it and funneled their money. And I dislike Trump, but it was a lot more egregious than anything that's happening in this country.
Can I follow up?
Please.
In Nazi Germany, or pre-Nazi Germany, in the 30s in Germany, it wasn't the government itself that was doing some of these activities. It was paramilitary organizations, and sort of that hardcore that you were talking about that's targeting you digitally. My concern would be that hardcore might target you spontaneously.
Yes, I do think there is a chance in a Trump presidency that there could be domestic violence that goes unpunished. I'll put it that way. But again, I mean, I don't see the situations as being comparable. I don't think the United States right now is Weimar Germany in the 20s and 30s. We're in a much better position. Our history indicates that it won't happen here. And if I didn't believe that, I would be buying the seeds and the gold and everything else.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
I wish and hope you are correct, but I think the analogies with what happened in Germany in the 20s and the 30s, and how Hitler was appointed chancellor.
You know you're giving me a panic attack right now.
But if you look at the history, very analogous in terms of the economic situation, the people who elected Hitler or his people to the parliament, the way he took over them and then started issuing decrees, the Nuremberg decrees, and taking over and became lawless for the
There's absolutely a lot there. The difference my guess is the difference is Germany at that time was largely a homogenous culture, and the United States just isn't. There is enough.
Can I push back on this though? I think there's some comparisons that are fair, but I also, I work in conservative talk radio. I talk on the radio for 3 hours a day. I'm on Fox News almost every single day. I don't understand Bernie or bust. If liberals are so petrified by Trump...
Wait, where are you getting Bernie or bust from this?
Because if I assume you're liberal just because you seem scared of Trump, or not a Republican.
Or just...
But if you're so
or
scared...
Or just normal.
I'm looking at it
from a historian.
Very independent.
Okay, as an independent.
And I'm looking at it objectively in the sense of knowing what German history was at that time, what the economics were, the analogy to what the economics are now. His election is realistic because what they're looking at are groups of people in the swing states who are very angry at what has happened with the entitlements, with the whole issue of the economy having taken their jobs, with the terrorism threatening their livelihoods and their lives, their well-being, their children not having a future, and Trump verbalizing everything that they have wanted to say. And so they've mobilized behind him. And if you have states like Pennsylvania, Michigan traditionally a more liberal state. Pennsylvania, a swing. Ohio, you had someone decent like Kasich not getting a foothold at all. These states could swing the electoral votes. What the population in the United States continues to forget is it's not a popularity or a majority vote, it's an electoral manipulation. And Trump has the opportunity to do it. And my fear is that he is so into himself, he will surround himself with people who are elevated to a level that will be able to allow them to take control, to better themselves, and all those Bernie people, the people who support Hillary, even though she has all of these flaws that will be built upon, before we know it, something horrible might happen.
I don't disagree that horrible things could happen. I don't think it will get to the level that you're portraying, at least I hope not, for a few reasons. One, the Constitution, I think, is strong enough and will survive it. Two, the Congress, I don't think, would allow it. I think Speaker Ryan is doing yeoman's work right now of trying to keep his party together while repudiating his nominee. I don't think your analogy of the economics is analogous. We're not in a depression. We don't have war reparations in the trillions that we owe to the rest of the world. And the military would never go along with it. I just don't, as powerful as the executive has become, I don't think it has reached the levels where somebody could declare themselves chancellor, emperor, dictator, what have you. I just don't think we're there.
He already has. He just needs the validation.
Well, sure.
If he wins the election, remember, Hitler took control. Germany had a constitution. Yes, the reparations were terrible. The French increased or wanted to increase the reparations.
But wait, can I interrupt you for a second? Do I kind of sound like I know what I'm talking about? Okay, good. That's all I need. All I need is your validation, because you know what you're talking about.
Nobody knows. This is the problem with the future. All I'm commenting on is we see all these terrible things, but don't consider them realistically. We're just seeing a little bit here, a little bit there. And that's what happened. I'd hate to see Trump. I hate to say that I equate him with Hitler, but the methods are there. Hitler was appointed chancellor with a minority of representation in the German parliament.
Elected chancellor.
Wasn't elected chancellor. Selected, and then he made himself.
I also think,
anyway.
I think we can move past this. My only point that I was trying to make is that I'm much. You said John Kasich was a rational person. John Kasich, I'm a pretty liberal socially liberal Republican, and he was much too liberal for me. So like, this is a very nuanced election in a lot of different ways. And the only point I was trying to make is I hear the frustration from so many liberals everywhere, all the time, that they can't believe Trump is happening. Right now you have the DNC erupting into chaos because colleagues of mine are present and covering this. So if you're this petrified of Trump, why don't you get in line and vote for Hillary, as flawed of a candidate? And I could talk about how flawed Hillary is all day long. But that's the part I don't understand. If you're this petrified of Trump, why is there this? Why
the Bernie people?
The Bernie people.
They will. They will.
Because the socialists don't want to vote.
Socialists don't want to vote.
You look as frustrated as I feel, sir.
Let's take one or two more questions.
Let's move on, because there's other people.
Yeah.
Genius. I just want to mention.
Yes.
Hitler criticized the communists, which was a substantial population.
Sure.
The homosexual population, the Jews.
The gypsies.
Gypsies. So all
He would have hated the Beatles, I think we can agree. He hated the Beatles.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is that, yes, people should vote for Hillary. I don't
think people should necessarily vote for Hillary. I just don't. If we're talking about the election.
That's the option. But what I'm concerned about is that we're dealing with an electoral system that could work in Trump's favor.
Yes, that is correct. I agree. Yes. Oh, I was going to go all the way in the back, but you're wearing a suit and tie since you got dressed up. Absolutely, you first.
Sorry. I just came from work, and by work I mean I'm unemployed and dressed up like this just for you.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on. So I think part of the problem that's sort of at the base of all this is we live in a really sort of divisive environment right now where people get upset, and the other side gets upset. And I think we're all really well-intentioned, good-natured folks in this room, I'd like to think, and we're comparing Trump to Hitler, and that's okay. I mean, I think there are merits to everybody, whatever your opinion is, usually has some kind of merit somewhere. But I can't help but think that I listened for 8 years to people on the other side compare President Obama to Hitler.
Well, what is your, when you say the other side, what is your side?
Oh, no, I'm saying, like, people who maybe you wouldn't...
Oh, you're saying people on the other side call Obama
right.
Hitler, etc.
Exactly. So
right.
I'm not, I mean, I don't want to get into the merits of either argument. Kind of what I'm more interested in is we're still all going to be Americans after this election.
Yeah.
We're still going to have to live together. What are some of the points, because you have both traveled the country and spoken to a lot of people, what's sort of some of the connecting areas where you can get along with the person on the other side?
Well, the thesis of our book, I think, and maybe you disagree with this a little bit, was that we have much more in common than, there's much more that connects us than separates us. And most people, if not, I mean, by the vast majority of people, all they want is to have a safe home, raise their kids, send them to good schools, have an opportunity to work in a meaningful and gainful way for a fair salary, and feel like when they retire, they don't have to worry about falling into poverty, and to be safe in their homes and in their nation. I think that's the basic social contract that most Americans have with their government, conservative, liberal. Everybody kind of wants those same things. So if you can just find that common ground, then it becomes a question of tactics. How do we get there? And the conservative and the liberal, conservatives and liberals obviously disagree about how we get there, but there's so much common ground that most of the time, essentially what we're doing is arguing on the fringes. I shouldn't say that. We're arguing about incredibly important things, but we're trying to arrive at the same place. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I agree with you that we're all Americans. I think that attitude is harder to find right now. And again, I'm like really in it right now in a lot of different ways. Just got back from Cleveland.
Head still spinning.
Just did my radio show. We're divided in a way that I find very scary, but I also know that Michael and I agree on, I mean, almost nothing when it comes to politics. I mean, other than like, I got him to like shooting guns, and that's pretty much where it begins and ends. But we're very good friends. I can legitimately say I don't think I now am relying on him for emotional support in a way I wouldn't have anticipated, and friendship and having just common American values unite us. I still believe in our message above all else, but we're 3 months away from the election, and right now it just feels very bleak, but this might be the fever pitch time.
It is. But the other thing I would say is that when you talk about us nationally and the dialogue that we're having nationally, it is very easy to conclude that everybody is shouting at each other. on the granular level, on the person-to-person level, I feel like I can talk to anybody about any issue in a respectful way and be heard, and I feel like I can hear what they're saying back to me. The conversation continues in, I think, a respectful way, despite the fact that in the stratosphere, in the electrons that are zapping back and forth from our television studios to our homes, the dialogue is vitriolic. On a granular level, I think neighbors can still talk to neighbors. At least I hope so.
Time for about 2 more questions.
Yes, Jill.
Hi.
Hi.
So, I don't know whether or not you guys are aware, but Dr. Seuss actually did a ton of political cartoons.
And some sexy stuff, too.
Yeah. And that actually helped us get into World War II when we were being isolationists.
Shut up, seriously?
Yeah. It was for a magazine called E.M.
I didn't know that
It
either.
was accused of being a communist magazine. They actually talk about it in Good Night and Good Luck. But he did all of these really great cartoons.
So he was specifically advocating entering the war.
Yes, and that is what kind of woke people up. And I think that cartoons can be so powerful. And what you've done is obviously doing very well. I was wondering if you were considering doing a follow-up or anything else, working with this cartoonist again.
I would certainly work with Marc Rosenthal again. My hope is that I don't have to. That is my fondest hope, is that this is the first and last in the Trump series. If he wins, there will be endless Trump books, believe me. Trump and his pal Putin go on a fishing trip, like all kinds of things.
Stop!
It's kind of funny. Yes, in the back, I'm sorry.
So, interestingly enough, the reason I came into the store, actually I've been a fan of yours for a while, but I didn't know you were speaking here. I came into the store because I was looking for a book called The True Believer by Eric Hoffer. And that book was written in the 50s, and what the book basically says is that radicals, whether on the left or right, have more in common with other radicals than they do with a moderate. So someone that's on the far left will join the far right before they join the center. So with that idea, what are your thoughts on basically like what is happening in the DNC? And people on the far left seem to have a lot more vitriol and anger towards Hillary than they do towards Trump.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we see that in the Bernie bro phenomena, which is a minority of them, I would say a considerable minority of them, meaning a small number, around 15%, will vote for Trump instead of Hillary. There's absolutely a point where the Mobius strip connects and the far right meets the far left. There's a television, there's a guy named Dave Rubin who is a liberal, and you know him?
I love him.
And I was on a show called The Rubin Report, which is geared towards liberals, but is starting to really embrace the alt-right message, not necessarily in terms of the racial stuff or the anti-Semitic stuff, but in terms of the free speech stuff and the anti-PC stuff, which really starts to get very blurry between the far right and the far left. There's you probably, or maybe you know, maybe you don't know, this guy named Milo Yiannopoulos, who is currently the poster boy for the alt-right movement, a very flamboyant British guy who speaks fairly eloquently about the worst things possible. He was the guy that was just banned from Twitter for harassing Leslie Jones, the actress in Ghostbusters, or I should say instigating the harassment of Leslie Jones. And he right now is kind of the fulcrum of where those two movements meet, the far right and the far left.
And also, interestingly enough, WikiLeaks, who are the ones that did this thing, they were on Twitter, and a lot of, when I go on Facebook, about 40 of my friends who are pretty much all left, or far left, they all like WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks was advocating for that guy, Milo. They also made a tweet about people on Twitter with brackets around their names. Brackets around their names is, there was like a neo-Nazi app that would put brackets around people with Jewish names. So basically WikiLeaks, a lot of people who are on the far left think WikiLeaks is far left. People on the far right think WikiLeaks is far right. And it's actually, now they're kind of getting brasher with Trump's ascendancy. But it's interesting how it's only now that you're actually able to tell like what the difference is between the two.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me, just as a comedian, as somebody who peddles free speech for a living, it's very interesting to me to see how the argument of free speech can be twisted into advocation of hate speech, which is essentially what's happening right now. The anti-PC movement has become, in essence, an intellectual excuse for hate speech. That's the way I see it. That in saying we're not going to be PC anymore, what we're really saying is misogyny is fine, and racism is fine, and xenophobia is fine. It's all fine because it's all under the umbrella of free speech. As somebody who deals with in freedom of speech for a living, I would say comedians have to walk this line all the time, because what we know as comedians is I can go on a stage and have the constitutional right to say whatever horrible thing comes to mind. I can make rape jokes, I can make racism jokes, I can say the N-word, I can scream it to the heavens, and I will not be prosecuted for that by the government, but those words have consequences. And part of freedom of speech, like with every other right we have, is the responsibility to exercise it with some, I wouldn't even say restraint, but with some awareness of what you're doing. And what the movement right now is to be purposely offensive for the sake of being offensive, and to expose some sort of ugliness that they have in them, and to do it under the intellectual banner of free speech, and it's disgusting. But this book's hilarious, so. Well, thank you guys very much. I didn't realize it was going to get so heady. I didn't feel prepared for that. But my 2-volume history of the Ottoman Empire is coming out this fall, so I hope you'll check that out. In the meantime, I am happy to sign any books that you may have. Mark is here, and he will also sign right beside me, and Megan's going to hang out, and Megan's mom's here. Please say hi to Megan's mom.
Your wife is here.
My wife is here. Please say hi to my wife. She will hate that. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate it.